Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles, the Friday podcast about your Kindle, books, and all things Amazon. I'm Len Edgerly. Today is February 22nd, 2019. Greetings to you from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I traveled with considerable urgency just a week ago to be with my father in the hospital. I arrived that day in time to take him home from the hospital after just one night, and he arrived home with medication which dramatically improved his breathing and cough, which were the main ailments that had sent him to the hospital. So he was in decent shape for a low-key celebration of his 92nd birthday on February 18th, and Darlene and I were really glad to be here for that. 3 days later, yesterday on February 21st, my niece Fran gave birth to another great-grandchild for Mom and Dad. That's an 8-pound, 2-ounce girl named Annie Joy Betleon. She shares her birthday with my grandson James, who became a teenager yesterday, turned 13. So the pulse of our extended family is strong, ever-changing, and ceaselessly surprising and engaging, and we're glad to be out here. We'll be heading back to Denver on Tuesday until late April. My guest this week knows a thing or 20 about children because she is the head of Amazon Publishing's Two Lions imprint for children, as well as a new imprint, Amazon Crossing Kids, which will focus on translating top-quality children's books into English.
We would really love to discover books from all over the globe, especially from diverse regions that may not be as well known to a young English readership.
Also this week, we will look at the aftermath of Amazon's backing out of the planned HQ2 development in New York and Queens. And I'll have good news about the return of one of my favorite Echo devices after having it took a brief hiatus, but it's back. And in comments, an unusual opportunity, you're going to have a chance to request one of 7 working Fire tablets used. They're being donated by listener Wendell Webb to listeners of the Kindle Chronicles on a first-come, first-served basis. And toward the end of the show in the comments, you'll find out how you can request one. Well, this week I've been reading a lot about the HQ2 decision in which Amazon pulled out of New York. Kind of abruptly, surprisingly, it took everyone by surprise because of the suddenness of it, and in the aftermath there has been lots of analysis and comment on it. One of the pieces which I found helpful was the New York Times has a podcast called The Daily, and they did kind of a TikTok of the whole operation and what led to the decision for Amazon not to pursue the site in Queens, in Long Island City. A couple of things I noticed there. We've all heard that $3 billion in incentives, tax breaks, were offered to Amazon to come to New York, and that was bandied about by people who were very opposed to it as a big giveaway and to the world's richest man, etc. That, it turns out, a little bit misleading, or at least I didn't see much coverage of the details of what went into that $3 billion. $500 million of it was actually cash that was offered to Amazon to help build the building, the center that they're going to be locating these 25,000 jobs in. The rest of the $3 billion, which is almost $2.5 billion, is a calculation that is available to any company that brings jobs into this area. I don't know whether it's specifically Queens or New York City. In other words, if you bring a job, you get X dollars of tax credits after the job has been created, so that it's not in any way cash. And the reason it got to be such a big number, approaching $2.5 billion for a total of $3 billion, is that Amazon was bringing an astounding number of jobs in, 25,000 jobs. So when you did the arithmetic, the existing incentives available for this kind of new job creation ballooned that number up into a big number. So that's quite a big different than the idea that the mayor and the governor of New York were just sitting down and saying, come on, Amazon, we'll give you $3 billion if you do this. No, it was a calculation based on existing incentives, which make a lot of sense from an economic point of view, especially in a place like New York, that if someone brings in a job, it provides tax revenue, and that's how that number was arrived at. The other thing which I didn't realize until I listened to the daily account of it was the dramatic effect of the election in November and its timing with the Amazon announcement of the New York location. And it turns out that they announced it a few days after that election. And in that election, there were some folks elected in New York and in that Queensboro that pretty far left, pretty outspoken, ran on a big populist wave, and the legislature in New York changed. There was a real sea change that brought to the fore some loud and very effective voices that saw Amazon as a great target to go after. And I almost wonder if Amazon had done its homework on what type of changes might be coming in that election, that if they had waited to see the dust settle and then move forward a little bit more cautiously. But everything changed quite quickly in those weeks around the election, and I think that's what led to Amazon finding that the work of settling in and having a positive relationship with the community was going to be much harder than they could have foreseen before that. In the end, I think maybe the folks in New York thought, well, Amazon needs us more than we need them. And Amazon's decision pretty much showed that that wasn't the case. The other thing which came out of a Jason Del Rey piece in Recode, interesting perspective, and he has a great feel for Amazon. He's been covering the company for a long time, and he's one of the reporters that I really follow in just his understanding of the company. He was saying that when this uproar came about the $3 billion incentives, Amazon might have just sort of pivoted and say, we really want to come to New York. We're here for the workforce. The incentives were fine, but we don't really need them. And somehow we're going to just walk away from the incentives that would come our way based on the existing agreement and the existing formulas. I think that the naive part of that is, what would you have done with the $570 million that the D.C. area came up with to lure Amazon there? Would you have given up that too, and would you be giving up all incentives that any town might be offering to bring Amazon jobs? That might put the company at quite a competitive disadvantage to other employers who are, happy to play by the existing rules of economic development, which are pretty well established. But I think Jason was right that there could have been a moment there, probably would have had to have been led by Jeff Bezos himself, of saying, we're reacting to a new set of facts, and this is what we're going to do. And it could have turned into, as Jason suggests, kind of a love fest of people saying, "My gosh, look at what this company has done," and boy, we really are glad to have them. It seemed like they did a similar thing when Senator Sanders was pushing Amazon pretty hard on his goal of a $15 minimum wage, and Bezos just said, well, we're going to just start paying $15 as our minimum wage everywhere in Amazon. I'm sure they thought that out, and it was a logical thing to do, but the timing of it was quite effective in changing the dialogue. I don't think that the aftermath and the criticism of Amazon that has been coming their way, that they were a child, they took their toys and went home, I doubt if any of that is going to last, and I'm quite certain that none of it is going to translate into lower sales for Amazon. I always remember the coverage in the New York Times back when Amazon was playing hardball with the publishers, and there were stories that were saying, well, boy, people are going to be really upset that Amazon is throwing its weight around the publishers, and there could be a boycott of Amazon might get started. And there were people saying, yeah, I'm not going to buy from Amazon. Those things just never really take hold. And I think the reason is that our habits of purchasing tend to trump whatever ideological or political stances we might want to take. I've noticed that myself because I've had trouble with the former CEO of Starbucks. Can't even remember his name, but he's really irritating me in his threats to run for president. And I found myself, well, I'll always get my coffee at Pete's. I'm gonna stop using Starbucks if this guy goes forward in this quixotic pursuit. I don't think so. I love my Starbucks. I love my lattes. I love my flat white. And the idea that I would impose that big a change in my purchasing habits because of a position that I hold in the public debate of the times, not so much. Another story which surfaced just the day or two ago, and I think it was from the Puget Sound Business Journal, was behind a paywall, but it was the idea that there is a facility or a campus area in Bellevue, which I think is in the Seattle area, that Amazon is going forward with, and there's going to be thousands of jobs that are going to be added there. And the suggestion of this article was that after all of this hoopla over HQ2 in New York, that there might very well be a quiet but pretty major addition to the workforce in the Seattle area as a result of this, that could actually get up to 25,000 new jobs over the type of period of time that was going to be playing out in New York. Lots of changes in how companies are being perceived. The one article I read said Amazon's in the unenviable position of getting heat from both the left and the right, the sort of populist left and the populist right. They both see Amazon as a good target. Most of us in the middle, I don't think, are as susceptible to those kinds of attacks. But it's the world that Amazon is existing in, and they learned about it in this episode in New York, and I'm sure how they make decisions in the future will be informed by what they learned. I don't think we'll ever see another big lottery for an HQ3 going forward. That there was enough pushback on that whole thing in retrospect that now it's just going to be which cities are going to get the next 1,000 jobs that Amazon adds, and there'll be all kinds of factors that go into those decisions. Second item, interesting piece by Chris Walton, who was on the show a few weeks ago. He's a retail analyst, and he is finding lots of people criticizing the Amazon Go store. That's the cashierless store. There's one in Seattle, and they're starting to pop up in other places. And the whole scan and go technology, there are people saying it's too expensive, and it's just not something that it's a fad that retailers shouldn't get sucked into. He's saying au contraire, that these stores are so much more suited to shopping, especially in certain kinds of shopping. And Amazon has so much money because of its probable 100 million Prime members in the U.S. that generate money that can pay for these kinds of technology rollout, that Amazon is pretty much able to put these new Amazon Go stores anywhere they like, airports, hospitals, you name it, and that anybody in retailing that sticks their head in the sand and thinks this is going to go away is making a big mistake. A well-argued piece by Chris Walton. Finally, in news, Echo Clock. You know I love the Echo Clock. I use it as a timer, and they stopped making it or offering it at the website, I think 2-3 weeks ago, and The Verge reported that it's back, and sure enough, when I checked at Amazon.com, it's there for $30. It's in stock. You can get one, and I continue to use this 10-minute sitting practice 2 or 3 times a day. I'll find my mind is just sort of racing, my heartbeat is up over something, and I'll just sit in the chair. I'll ask A to set a timer, and these lights appear on the clock, and they kind of tick down as the minutes go on. And at the end of that 10 minutes, I'm kind of rebooted. I've taken to tonight I'm, as usual, trying to get the show done because Darlene and I are going to Maine early in the morning. I thought, I got to get in the podcast closet and just start doing this. No, I'm going to sit in the chair. I'm going to have A set that Echo Clock for me and sit there for 10 minutes. And I think that it just puts me in a frame of mind that's a little less frantic and has a little more of an organic sense of what I'm doing here on the 551st show of my podcast, and that it's going to be fun, and we're going to talk about some great stuff, and that I hope you're going to enjoy listening to it. So Echo Clock, highly recommended by the Kindle Chronicles. Time now for the tech tips. I tried to do something using my Echo Show, which I was pretty excited about, but it just didn't work out, and I am not sure what went wrong. And if you have any ideas on how to fix it, I'd love to hear from you at podchronicles@gmail.com. What I did is I took that song that I wrote, Ocean Park Blues, and I created a video that had photos of Ocean Park, particularly photos of my dad, because he figures in the song, and it's about the passage of time and how he was running on that beach when he was a boy. And I remember being there when I was 4 years old, getting my first tricycle. So it was really fun to lay all of these photos from the actual place that inspired the song and create a video. Once I had it in MP4 format, exported from iMovie, good quality sound, everything was great, I wanted to make it very easy for Dad and others to see it. So I figured out by getting into their Amazon account that I could upload the video to their photos collection that's associated with my mom's Amazon account. And there weren't any other photos there, so I just was going to have their photo album consist of this one video. Then I was able to say, show me my photos. And it would pull up the video, and then you had to tap the screen to play it, or sometimes it would come up and it would just start playing. And it was wonderful because with the new Echo Show, it's a big screen. And when I was out there at their place on Dad's birthday, which was the debut of this thing, it did work, and he was able to see the video on the Echo Show. Very quickly after that, it started just messing up. It would play for 30 seconds and stop, and then you had to tap on it and get it to play again. When I tried it just now on my Echo Show, which is tied to their account, it just wouldn't even start playing. So there's some kind of a glitch in the ability of the Echo Show to show this. I also put it up on YouTube, and so Dad can see it on his iPhone. And I called him this morning. He said, "Guess what I'm doing? I'm watching the Ocean Park Blues on my iPhone. I love it." And so that's a way that he can see it pretty reliably, and that's been fun. But it seems like the Echo Show ought to be able to play a video from their cloud storage area, and it just doesn't seem to be working. I will have a link to that video in the show notes. If you just go to YouTube and search for Len Edgerly Ocean Park Blues, I think it'll come up, and I hope you'll enjoy it if you want to take a look at it. For the next tech tip, I want to tell you about the Amazon Basics Alexa enabled microwave. I ordered one, and it was delivered here in home delivery while we were gone. So one of the first things I wanted to do when we got here a week ago was to get the microwave set up in my den and to try it out. It's pretty cool. So I have an Echo here in my podcast closet. The microwave is out in the den, and my coffee was getting a little cold, so I just put the cup out there and then came back. Alexa, warm up my coffee.
What's the volume of coffee?
1 cup.
Starting coffee. 1 minute, 15 seconds.
I can hear that the microwave just turned on, and my coffee is being warmed up with a command to A. Darlene thinks this is hilarious because I'm going to put the coffee cup in the microwave, then I'm coming here to talk to the Echo, and why is that making my life any easier? I don't know. It's just more fun. And it's also, I heard people talking about it when it first came out, the idea that you can tell her to warm up my coffee, and then if she wants to know how big a cup it is, I think if I'd said 20 ounces or something, it would have been, she would have cooked it for longer than 1 minute and 15 seconds. That to reclaim this thing, microwave, which all of us know about 10% of how to run it. I just always click the 30 seconds 3 times in a row if I want 1 minute 30 seconds, and all of these other buttons and controls, I never even bothered to learn how to use them. But I probably will start using some of the voice commands because it's more fun. Finally, Tech Tips. I reached out on Twitter asking for ideas for Alexa skills because I do like the idea of each week pointing you to something. And I heard from Steve Gold. He replied, "We like Peter Sagal on NPR's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me." And he said, ask Alexa to, and then he gives a command, so I'll try it. Alexa, open Wait, Wait quiz.
Welcome back to the Wait Wait News Quiz. Back for more, eh? It's me, Bill Curtis, and your host, Peter Sagal.
Thanks, Bill. All right, let's get started. You've already played this week's game. Would you like to try last week's?
Yes.
Before we play our game, a quick shout-out to Capital One, and congratulations to Cody in Atlanta, last month's winner. If you want a chance to be like little Cody, well, all you have to do is get 5 right every week.
Alexa, stop. So
the answer is the Grammys.
Grammys?
Alexa, stop. Wow.
Polar bear.
I can't get it to stop.
It's crashing into Earth.
Alexa, exit. Wow. That was hard to get it to stop. And then there was a Capital One ad in there, so I don't like these ads sneaking in, but I guess if I asked to play the thing, then I guess I asked to hear the sponsor. Anyway, that's fun, and it remembered that I had already done this week's show, and then it gave me a chance to do last week's. Pretty cool. So that's open Wait Wait quiz. John Aga said that he's been listening to old-time radio programs available as skills, and let's see, I found a way to find these. Where is it on my notes here? So if you say, Alexa, open vintage radio.
Before I play your favorite show, we would like your opinion on the next release of vintage radio. Do you have a minute for quick feedback?
No.
Here is Murder Goes for a Swim from Suspense, July 20th, 1943.
An oldie.
Suspense.
Alexa, stop. So that's fun, and if you keep going next, it'll cycle through all different kinds of shows and a lot of old radio that you can listen to on Alexa. That's pretty neat. The last tech tip I want to tell you about is called Alexa Cast, and I saw this on the I Love My Echo blog, great source for Alexa information. What you can do is using the app on your phone, you can direct your Amazon Music content to any speaker that's available in your system. You could send it to an Echo in a certain room of your house. Anything that's listed on your devices, you can say, play the music that I've selected on Amazon Music on these devices. You can even, it turns out, direct it toward an Apple HomePod, and I have one of those, and of course that's a nice big speaker, so I was able to, going into it, actually I said it was the Alexa app. You have to go into the Amazon Music app, and then you'll find a place to use this Alexa Cast way to throw the content to a certain device. So I set it up on AirPlay, which sent it to the HomePod, and I was playing my Amazon Music on my HomePod. I couldn't figure out a way to make it play on my Google Home speaker. Maybe I needed Chromecast or something like that. But a new way to target your music to specific devices through your home. Pretty handy. Alexa Cast. Time now for the interview. A graduate of the University of Virginia, where she earned a BA in English, Kelsey Skea began her career at HarperCollins Children's Books and later worked at Disney for 9 years, including 3 years as executive editor of the Disney Book Group. She joined Amazon in 2013 as editorial director of Two Lions. That's the Amazon publishing imprint created that year to focus on books for readers up to the age of 12. Last month, she took on additional responsibilities as editorial director for Amazon Crossing Kids, a new Amazon publishing imprint that will bring out picture books in translations into English. I connected with Kelsey on Monday, February 11th, while I was in Denver and she was in New York City. I began by asking why Amazon created Amazon Crossing Kids.
Well, just to give a little bit of background, Amazon Crossing Kids is a new imprint, and it's dedicated to publishing children's books from all over the globe and translating them into English. And we really just wanted to increase the diversity of children's picture books in translation and to encourage kids to read from a range of cultural perspectives. And we're hopeful that kids will use our books as one element as they start to learn about the world and as they start to begin their journey as global citizens.
Now, you've got Amazon Crossing as an imprint and the Two Lions, which is the children's imprint. I could imagine you might have just added this initiative to one or the other of those imprints as opposed to starting an entirely new imprint. What was the thinking between separating it out?
Sure. We really wanted these books to stand out as works of translation for kids. The imprint will definitely blend the expertise of Two Lions, which is our children's book imprint, and Amazon Crossing, which is our adult imprint for translated books, and also the leading publisher of translated literature in the U.S. But when we were thinking about how best to publish children's books in translation, we wanted to have that same singular focus that Amazon Crossing has, not only to draw attention to the importance of translated literature for kids, but also to have that dedication to discovering great works from all regions of the world and connecting children with them in the right way.
Now, am I right? You're going to continue to head Two Lions and, in addition, take on the Amazon Crossing Kids?
Correct.
What ages will the Amazon Crossing Kids books be targeted at?
Well, we're planning to publish picture books, and those will be aimed at kids ages 3 to 8, and parents can either read the books aloud to kids or kids can read them on their own. Obviously, there's a big range in abilities in that age range.
Now, I've got a grandson who's 3 up in Cambridge, and so I read a lot of. Those are board books, right? Those kind of thick-paged books that you read to a 3-year-old?
There are board books. A lot of folks read board books for kids who are from the age that they're born up through age 3. Uh-huh. So what we're publishing will not be board editions. The print editions will be regular picture book paper, and then we also have Kindle editions.
Right, exactly. Two Lions, how many children's books have you published so far with Two Lions?
Well, we currently publish a list of around 20 titles annually, which is really great because it allows us to give strong creative and marketing focus to each book and to help focus on building the careers of our authors and illustrators. We also previously acquired the children's trade publishing arm of Marshall Cavendish, and their catalog forms much of our backlist.
I see. Two Lions, that probably refers to something in children's literature. What's the name come from?
Two Lions was actually named prior to my arrival here, but one of the inspirations was certainly the two lions who are in front of the New York Public Library.
Oh, that's cool. And there's a C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's a book I think of as a children's book, but that's only one lion. Two lions in front of the library. That's cool. How about books from your childhood? If you go as far back as you can remember somebody reading you a book and having the lights go on, what do you recall?
I read quite a lot. My mom likes to tell stories of me carrying around stacks of books from room to room when I was little. I loved pretty much everything I read. My favorite picture books were really often the classics. I loved Corduroy by Don Freeman. I also loved Bread and Jam for Francis by the Hobans. Another favorite was Make Way for Ducklings by Robert McCloskey. And since we're talking about translated books today, we read a lot of the Babar books in my family, which originally came from France.
Oh, I read those too, and I that's right. And so they were written, and somebody was translating them into English. This is back in the 50s or something, or way back.
Yeah, I think I'm not exactly sure when they were first published, but Jean de Brunhoff wrote them in French, and they were translated into English.
It's interesting too because when I think back, I love those books, and even as a kid, I think I had a feeling that they were different from some of the other books that I was reading, that there was something a little bit foreign or kind of an exciting, different world. So that was probably my first taste of the kind of thing you're going to be doing with Amazon Crossing Kids, and I wasn't even really aware of it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's really fun about these books is that kids may recognize some of the differences right away, and that will speak to them, but they'll also recognize similarities to other books, and that's wonderful too.
Yeah. Well, in sort of your Two Lions role, books in the digital age and with all the other things that my 3-year-old is getting exposed to, he's got a 5-year-old brother. Do you have a sense of the role that books play in the life of a child today compared with 25 or 50 years ago? Is it doing the same kind of a thing for a child or something quite different just because the media environment has changed so much?
There are a lot of studies, if you take a look, about the cognitive benefits of being read aloud to, of course, or about reading independently. And reading can also play a role in developing social skills like empathy. But I think, just as you were saying, kids are a lot more scheduled than they used to be. There are a lot more things competing for their time and attention. And I think books give them the opportunity to slow down. And so maybe they discover an art style that inspires them, or a character who makes them laugh, maybe a phrase that sparks their curiosity, or maybe the book just brings them comfort. And I think just books have the same magic they have always had, and I think they always will. And magic, I think, is a great thing for a child to have in their life.
Well, yeah, it seems like as a grandfather, the magic seems to come from the child to the grandfather a lot, just by the way they look at the world. And so if you can help open up magic through books, that's kind of a nice way to have it go the other direction.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm hugely digitally oriented and been doing this podcast about the Kindle for 10 years, but I have never been tempted to try to read a book to my 3 or 5-year-old grandsons, like on a Kindle Fire or anything. It just has to be paper. And does that preference kind of translate into your Two Lions books? Are most of them read by grandparents or parents or other people on paper versus digitally?
Well, we publish in both print and Kindle, and it's really, we want kids and their parents and teachers to be using the format that's best for them.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense, and some back and forth too. But the other thing is the turning the pages. I mean, the 3-year-old knows when to turn the page, and I suppose he could learn to swipe too. So yes,
kids are increasingly savvy with the proliferation of devices. Yes.
Well, now, what are you starting out with as books? What are you going to publish first from Amazon Crossing Kids?
Well, we announced 3 titles. The first one is called Spiky, and that comes to us from Italy. It was published there in 2016. And that one is about a forest creature named Spiky, who spends his day bullying other forest creatures. He has sharp spikes on his body, so he's able to do kind of whatever he wants. And suddenly he starts to lose his spikes, and his world changes a little bit. He has to learn how to befriend other creatures of the forest. And when his spikes grow back, he has to make a decision about how he's going to act after that.
Wow. That sounds like a timely book.
Yeah, a universal theme. Definitely timeless. And then the second book is called A Tiger Like Me, and that comes to us from Germany. It was first published there in 2016. And the story follows a little boy who likes to imagine his world as that of a tiger's. So you see him kind of going throughout the day with his a human little boy. You see him going throughout the day with his tiger family as he imagines it, waking up in the den and such. And it's just a highly imaginative, creative story with lovely illustrations that celebrates imagination.
Huh, cool.
And finally, the third one is called Along the Tapajos. And this comes to us from Brazil, where it was first published in 2015. And it's the story of two kids and their pet tortoise, Titi. And they live in a small community that links the Amazon and Tapajos rivers. And every year the families living there have to relocate when the rainy season starts. So when this particular family relocates, they realize they've left Titi behind. And so they have to go rescue him along the river. And it gives an insightful glimpse into the river community life.
Yeah. So those are being translated from Italian, German, and Portuguese. And
yes.
Are you picturing a limit to which languages you'll be translating from, or just taking advantage of opportunities book by book?
No, we would really love to discover books from all over the globe, especially from diverse regions that may not be as well known to a young English readership. And we want the list to be dynamic and really showcase every possible language and culture that we're able to.
And how can authors, if an author hears about this in another country and has a book published in another language, how can they try to get it put to your attention so that it might get published by you?
Well, we actually have a spot on our website where they can submit their books. It's called Translation. The address, rather, is translation.amazon.com/submissions, and we accept proposals from any language.
Have you had a whole bunch so far?
We have had some so far since the announcement. I'm not sure what the exact count is, but It's exciting to see those come through.
Can you say, or do you know yet, roughly how many of the books you hope to publish each year?
Well, for 2019, we'll publish the 3 titles that I just mentioned, and then we're still working on future lists for future years. So I'll have to ask you to stay tuned on that one.
Okay, good. And we talked a little about magic. Say a little bit more about that. I mean, there's magic just in any children's book in any language, but you're adding a dimension to it with the translation. What are the other aspects of the magic for this project?
Sure. Well, I think most importantly, the translation just allows kids to experience works that were created in a culture that's different from their own. And the book could have a universal theme. It might have a more local focus. Whichever it does, translated books can expose kids to an aspect of another region. And the magic in that for us is that it's coming at a time where they're just starting to develop their own worldview.
Is there a different kind of a challenge when you're translating a children's book into English as opposed to a book for adults?
Well, I don't know all of the ins and outs and challenges on the adult side. Definitely the folks at Amazon Crossing can speak more to that. But on the kids side, I think translators really need to understand and gear the text and word choices so that young readers and or pre-readers will understand the story and the message, even if they live in a place that's far and different from the original story. The other piece that's unique to picture books is that they need to understand the storytelling that the illustrations do and how that affects the text. And sometimes they need to rely on the art to help convey some of the meaning. And I will say that we've been super fortunate to work with a couple of wonderful translators on the first 3 books. Laura Watkinson and Daniel Hahn have just been fabulous.
And were they had they done work for Amazon Crossing before, or are they brand new through Amazon Crossing Kids?
Laura Watkinson, I believe this was her first work with Amazon, and she's translated works for both children and adults. For other publishers, she actually won the Batchelder Award from ALA 3 times, the American Library Association. And she won the Vondel Prize, and she actually started up the Dutch branch of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And Daniel is another award-winning translator. He won the Independent Foreign Fiction Prize, as well as the International Dublin Literary Award. He's been very active in the translation community. He was on the Translators Association and the Society for Authors, and he was also a national program director of the British Center for Literary Translation.
When I think of my 3-year-old and when Jake, the older one, was his age, what sort of a sense of the world beyond Cambridge, Massachusetts do they have at that age, and I'm picturing reading one of these books and saying, okay, here's a book that was written by somebody in Italy, the Spiky book, and what does Italy mean to a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old? What are some of the things that a kind of woke grandparent would say in introducing one of these things?
First and foremost, it's a story. And I think that the level of comprehension probably varies a lot from child to child and probably changes pretty quickly as they're developing and learning. But I think it's okay if a child doesn't necessarily know, for instance, with Along the Tapajos, where Brazil is or how many continents there are. Maybe they just want Titi the turtle to be saved, but maybe while they're reading, they'll also pick up on the idea of a river community and see that looks a little bit different from their own life. But there are also some similarities because the kids in the book have a pet turtle they love and they have families who love them.
When you're choosing a book to translate, are you thinking of the child and the adult that will probably be reading the book with the child?
We're really thinking about the child, the reader, when we're thinking about books. And we, of course, love it when our adult readers also love the books, but the child is the one we're thinking of.
Yeah. Now, when you translate a picture book, are the illustrations exactly the same in your version of it as in the original?
They are. We made the decision early on that the picture books that we acquire would include both the original story and the art. Both are essential to understanding the storytelling in the book and to representing the culture. So we may make design changes, but the artwork will be original from the book. Yeah. And I think, it's the interesting thing about artwork is that the style of the artwork can help represent a region in a different way. It can help represent it visually and help convey a piece of that culture to readers.
Yeah, I think I first learned about France from those Babar books. So there was something about those illustrations. Some of them were kind of scary, but
I don't remember the scary ones. But
I can't remember what it was. I was traumatized by one of those pictures. I should go back and find it. I could probably gain some mental health by reading it again. Does a translator usually have any direct contact with the author when a project like this is taken on, or what's that relationship like, if any?
Well, so far the translator has been working with the editors here, and we've been going back if necessary to the author.
I assume the author must be kind of thrilled when their book is translated in such a high quality way for a huge new audience in English.
Well, I think the authors and illustrators we've been working with so far have been really excited about not only the translation of their books, but also the announcement of this imprint. And hopefully they'll be just as excited when their books come into publication.
Yeah. Then I think word will spread and you'll be having a lot more submissions. Well, anything else that you think might be of interest about the project that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I would just say, one of our big hopes is that the books really help kids, help introduce them to other cultures and help them see the value in a diverse set of perspectives and different points of views, whether those are cultural or artistic. And I hope that they foster a sense of connection and connectedness to people in other parts of the world that stays with them, or that some small piece of that stays with them as they grow up and develop their own outlook.
Yeah, well, kind of a long-term project. When are those 3 books that you mentioned going to be available for purchase?
Sure. Spiky is the one that will be out first, and that's going to publish on July 1st of this year. A Tiger Like Me will be out on September 1st, and Along the Tapajos will be out on October 1st.
Perfect. Great. I have been speaking with Kelsey Skea, editorial director of the Two Lions and Amazon Crossing Kids imprints of Amazon Publishing. Thanks very much, Kelsey.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Now we have this unusual opportunity where Wendell Webb is going to give away 7 Fire tablets. He wrote me, "Hi, Len. It's been quite a while since I've corresponded with you, but you seem to be carrying on nicely without me." A smiley face. "I still listen to the podcast every week, and yours is the only one I follow anymore. My interest in general technology has decreased over the past few years, but I'm still a big fan of Kindle readers, Alexa devices, and Fire tablets." Which brings me to the point of my email. I buy about every Fire tablet that comes out, and to divert the attention of this away from my wife, I upgrade her Kindle reader with each new model. I have given a tablet to almost every kid in my neighborhood and no longer have the speed to run down the adult neighbors here to make them take one. So I'm asking you, do you have a channel to funnel older Fire tablets or have a need for them yourself? I probably have 5 or 6 lying around of varying sizes. All of them work well. The older ones are slower than the newer ones, of course. If you have a suggestion, I don't want anything for them. I just hate to throw them away, and I will pay shipping. If you have no suggestions, I can donate them to a local Goodwill store. Well, I wrote back to Wendell saying I didn't know of a place to donate his Kindles, but that I would be glad to let you, the listeners, know about their availability if you'd like to give them away here on the show. And he replied with an inventory of his available tablets. He's charged them all, reset them to factory defaults, and he would like to give them away with free shipping on a first-come, first-served basis. Here are the tablets that he's offering. One Fire 7-inch 5th generation, one Fire 7-inch HDX 3rd generation, one Fire HD 8, that's a 2017 model, one Fire HD 6 4th generation, 2 Fire HDX 8.9-inch 4th generation tablets, and 1 original Kindle Fire in pristine shape in a premium leather case. So that's a total of 7 working Fire tablets that Wendell is generously offering to listeners of the show. If you would like one, all you have to do is send an email to Wendell Webb in Georgia, and here is his email address: Wendell, Wendell .Webb, WEBB @gmail. I am very grateful to Wendell for making these tablets available, and I hope they'll all find good homes as a result of his generosity. If you'd like one, I suggest you stop listening now and send an email right away to wendell.webb @gmail.com. That's it for this week. Next week's guest will be A.G. Riddle, who has a new standalone apocalyptic novel coming out in 4 days on February 26th. The title is Winter World. I have begun reading it, and I can tell you it is a fast-paced and tightly written book. This will be Jerry Riddle's second visit to the podcast following a conversation that we had in July of last year about his Origin Mystery and Extinction Files series. This is Len Edgerly for the Kindle Chronicles from Cambridge. I really appreciate your taking the time to listen to my show. Have a great day. Bye.